Welcome to another lore video, and this one is the first in a new chapter of Elite we're calling Ascendancy, so we'll have to see how it goes. While we wait for FDev to lay out their roadmap for this year, which we're expecting in their live stream at the end of the month, I'm exploring the possibilities for future stories and lore after we got some hints of how they might come about. The war ending has been anticlimactic to say the least, or at least this part of it with the Titans. Since nobody can imagine things really being over, but after dominating the narrative for over 2 years, it's all gone quiet and left a vacuum which everybody's feeling, whether they were in the war or not. We've all been left in a kind of limbo, and for those of us who were in the war, whatever our role was, fighting, rescuing, hauling, strategizing, the same question is being asked by all of us. What are we going to do now? Various content providers like Commander Burr have taken this opportunity to depart from their usual here is the news approach, not least because there hasn't been much news to report, and speculating about things they'd like to see and what might happen next. As to what might happen next, there could be another big story arc on the way, but there are other possibilities. 2 hints on the direction things might be going have happened already. The first is as a result of power play. There was a huge fight for the control of Sol and the systems around it, which caused the Federation to moan that people were taking advantage of the disarray caused by Casillo attacking. Archer won control in the end, but we might start to see more of this kind of thing as players see opportunities or create them. I speculated when I was looking at power play that it has the potential to be an automatic story generator, and wondered if this was what they were hoping for when designing it. That certainly fits with the idea of it being a role-playing layer on top of the BGS. As well as automatically generating opportunities for roleplay without events having to be hand-placed or scripted, instead of having to think up long-running story arcs all the time, FDev could simply build stories out of player activity by observing what we do and reacting to it with the odd tweak at their end, and still be able to add in the odd special event, scripted event, live event, community goal, or whatever else they like. But wouldn't be under pressure all the time to keep producing stories, and it also solves having a lack of Galnet for weeks on end, which nobody likes. Pandemics, wars, cost of living crises, elections, we weather all of those, no problem, but take away Galnet for a few weeks and there's a riot. The second hint about what they could do is as a result of AXI and XSF. They took it on themselves to go back to HIP 22460, the system where the Proteus wave was fired over 2 years ago by Salvation the Super Muppet. They went back there with the intention of clearing out all the Thargoids that remained, not really expecting it to work, but as they were at a loose end, they tried to tie up the loose end of HIP 22460 still being occupied, and keeping their hand in. However, FDev actually responded. They put in a high anti-Xeno conflict zone and a Galnet article announcing what AXI and XSF were planning, and when the anti-Xeno pilots had done enough clearances of the zone, FDev decided enough had been done to evict any remaining Thargoids from the system and released another Galnet article about it, as well as making some major changes to HIP 22460. The status of HIP 22460 was updated last Thursday, and the system is now clear of Thargoids. High predictions in and around HIP 22460 are still happening, but they're no longer automatically hostile and they won't use swarms on you. I didn't get high predicted at all, but I did jump in using a 70 light year Mandalay, so I was probably outside the zone for it to happen. Jumping into HIP 22460 itself, I did that with no high prediction at all. Your interface doesn't glitch anymore and your Guardian modules don't degrade anymore, as you can see from my FSD booster here. No modules are taking damage, Guardian or otherwise. Body 10B has gained a new blockade debris field where the conflict zone was. There's no human ships in that one, it is all Thargoid wreckage, but there is also other debris in the system with a mixture of human and Thargoid ships. The site of the Proteus wave, or to give it a technical name, the glowy green thing, is still down there and can't be approached. You still get repelled from it and the permit locks remain in place. Before, if you dropped out of Super Cruise anywhere in the system and sat there too long, interceptors would drop in and attack. That's gone. I'm sat here at the remains of the Azimuth ship, the Bright Sentinel, and nothing is dropping in or attacking me. There are anti-Xeno conflict zones left over from the war in the California sector, so AXI and XSF will continue to clean up there. They're inviting anyone who wants to join them tomorrow night at the time of this video's release, as they relaunch their Finance Fridays, which aim to get everybody lots of cash and shooter newbies in the art of anti-Xeno combat. So if you're a newbie to it and you like the idea of fighting Thargoids without getting involved in a long and protracted war, get yourself over there, join the AXI private group, which is open to anyone, make some good money, and learn more about this very specialised gameplay. Is this the kind of thing we're going to see more of? It's not the first time FDev have directly responded to a player initiative, but it is rare. Will we now see it becoming less rare, as more player activities get noticed and FDev do something at their end to recognise and play along with it? I hope so, because this is an area ripe for storytelling. Everyone wins. Players feel like their efforts are being noticed and appreciated, and FDev have the players writing part of the story for them, which takes the pressure off a bit, but also gives more meaning and relevance to the idea of blazing your own trail. When Power Play was announced, this was one of my first thoughts, that done right, it could generate stories without necessarily needing a dedicated narrative team creating them all the time, just somebody watching what we do and writing around it, as they've already done with the Power Play article about the Federation systems that were left weakened after Casillo's final attack. The same goes for player-led initiatives. There's a special kind of wrong-headedness from companies sometimes. They think paying attention to their players and watching what they do is too time-consuming, but then they pay even more for whole teams creating content in isolation. Yes, creating new content is important, but so is making the most of what you already have, and there are still a lot of small tweaks they could do which would go a long way towards establishing and keeping player goodwill. Iron out a few of those annoying and fiddly bits in menus and the little glitches that annoy everyone, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that every new idea should be run by us either. I like to be surprised by new content as much as anybody else. But it shouldn't be a completely disconnected process. It should build on the combination of what they've done already and what we do. So hopefully this interaction with player initiatives will be something they make the most of, if for no other reason than because it does half their job for them. While we're exploring the possibilities, how about exploring as a possibility? With the arrival of colonisation, players have speculated that we may end up with more to find and do on planets and moons, which would be nice. Exploring was the first thing in a game I got seriously into. I joined the PDES on the way back from Distant Worlds 2, but exploring, with the best will in the world, has become a cataloguing exercise that isn't much fun after a while. It needs other people to explore with to be fun, or a player-organised expedition to give it any meaning beyond rank, credits and personal discoveries. And I guess that depends on what kind of person you are, and some people could quite happily potter around the galaxy in solo forever, but for many explorers, it's become a bit of a drag. With some things people have been waiting for to be expanded on, like the Thargoid War and Power Play, having already been somewhat addressed and hopefully ongoing, exploring would seem the next logical thing to be expanded on, and fits in nicely with colonisation. Commander Burr mentions more opportunities for haulers with the arrival of colonisation, and that's certainly something that would fit with us, and Operation Ida, transporting people and goods to their new homes. All those displaced refugees from the war have to live somewhere. While we're talking about exploring, there's a thread in the forum that was started on Monday by the organisers of Distant Worlds, where they're inviting feedback on the possibility of doing Distant Worlds 3. Originally, after Distant Worlds 2, there were many reasons why they didn't want to do a third expedition anytime soon. The exploring mechanic had become stale. Odyssey didn't add much to it, except adding a few plants on planets, but there were other problems as well. Some of the organisers were on console, and they didn't get back onto a PC for a few years. Odyssey itself took a year to become stable, and there were also discussions about what player events and opportunities for role-playing they could do. The first Distant Worlds obviously had its waypoints to go to, but was much more of a casual journey. Basic exploring and see what you find. Distant Worlds 2 was more scripted with defined objectives, notably the 2 community goals to get the station built next to Sagittarius A, Explorer's Anchorage, which FDev blended into the expedition. What could they do with a third expedition? What could they tie it into? What could they arrange with FDev to do on their side to go along with it? All these and more were factors in whether to do another one. Now though, although exploring itself hasn't changed, they are looking at how they could run a third Distant Worlds and what they could include in it. I've linked to the thread below if you want to read what players think already, or have your own say. Could they tie it in with colonisation? That seems unlikely unless FDev allowed colonisation way out in the black. But a more localised expedition or part of the expedition could focus around the systems players are colonising in some way. Whatever may or may not happen or end up being included in Distant Worlds 3 if it happens, the announcement that they're thinking about it is nicely timed, just as people are talking about expanding the mechanics of exploring. Could this prompt FDev into expanding exploring sooner rather than later? We'll have to see what FDev have to say in their live stream in a couple of weeks and what, if any, Galnet articles come up. But for now, although we are in limbo a bit, we do at least have some news on the way. Player activities are picking up again, and Galnet is slowly coming back. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.